So Dan, we went to Blizzard. We spent 2 days at the studio.
We did.
And it was fun too, because it was just so much learning about the development of the original Warcraft 3, which
it's fascinating.
From a distance, you think like, yeah, well, I know like a lot of the talent has left, like the big key voices for Warcraft 3, but you forget how many old timers are still around Blizzard. It felt like when I went to Square for the Final Fantasy 15 trip and just meeting these people like, oh, hey, here's Derek Duke, and he composed all the music for the Zerg soundtrack. It's like, oh my God, I have so many questions. Or like, hey, here's Sam Didier. He came up with the word Warcraft. It's like, what? And his easy explanation was that was his D&D character, which was the opposite of witchcraft.
Yeah.
And so then he just used the name for Blizzard's new game.
Isn't that great?
I just love those little stories.
It's fascinating to go back and see not only the people that worked on the first game and were also working on this game, which is crazy, right? But like just to see how different game development was back then, especially on scrappy teams like Blizzard, like it's like, yeah, we just did everything. There was no pipeline. We just put people where we needed people. And
which also has its downside too, because then asking about like, do you guys have like old assets, the old audio recordings, all that stuff? It's like, no, we don't have any of that old stuff.
They're at a computer in a back room somewhere.
Yeah, they're like, we realized we didn't have the Warcraft 1 source code, but then we found it in some hallway or some old tower in there.
Exactly.
Like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, talking to those guys, that was very much the sentiment was over and over again. It's like, let's see, we were just really ambitious kids. Was what Siggety said when we were talking to him. That was definitely the tone. There were the 30 of us that shipped that. Right. I don't know. And then they went right into WoW. And that's such like a clean dividing line of like when that studio had to grow up. Because Siggety was even talking about the transition from Warcraft 3 to WoW and just realizing one day, we need to somehow take subscriptions from people. Like, how do we do that? Like, what is step one for building up this infrastructure? When the team is that small, it's mind-boggling.
It was absolutely fascinating stuff. Like, just to go through that history and so much history there and from people still there. Just, wow. It's almost... It's just so much. Like, we're like, I came up with this, and this, all the way to execution, right? Instead of like, putting it through a pipeline.
Yeah, and it's fun too. Talking to them and reading about Warcraft 3's development and how originally it was much more RPG focused. The camera was a lot closer. It was called
Legends.
Warcraft. It was called Warcraft Legends at that point because they wanted to shy a little bit from RTS. And then at a certain point, like the dam burst design-wise. It's like, let's just make this thing an RTS. Here we go. Let's stop calling it Warcraft Legends. Let's call it Warcraft 3. And that's when a lot of the new team came on. That's around when Siggety came on as well.
Yes.
And is the most fun thing, maybe, from those old timers was talking about like the different races. So ultimately it shipped with 4 races.
Correct.
But it's fun because we interviewed Siggety first,
Depends
the producer
who you
of
talk
the
to
game.
there.
Yes, and so he's like, so originally there were 13 races.
Yes.
And then when I came on, I think we had it down to like 8. But then talking to Sam Didier, he's like, I remember there being 9 races.
Right.
Specifically.
And then somebody else said 6.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the dragon race was by far the most one of the most interesting tidbits from that trip. It's a small tidbit, but it's so fascinating. There was originally a dragon race in the game, and the whole concept of this race was that it was just a single unit. You played as the dragon.
I love it.
That was it. You grew up. You got it from baby dragon to giant dragon, and that was it. There was no like buildings. You're our dragon.
Yeah,
this is a hero class.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy though. It's like just taking that to the extreme. And that was Sam Didier remembering that. It was like, who knows how far that got? But then like, other obvious, races back then. They were like, okay, the Tauren obviously were a race, trolls, ogres, demons.
Centaurs.
Yeah, infernals.
The demon and infernal race almost made it in. Apparently that was one of the more fleshed out ones that almost made it from like just being, enemies actually a playable race.
Yeah. And there's also a Didier was talking about like, back in the day, the Night Elves were riding spiders all the time. Just
the dwarves were on spiders.
Oh, is that what it was?
He said insects for the Night Elves, but the dwarves had spiders at one point.
Makes sense.
There was so much just insane stuff. It was great. It was just so great to like how much iteration happens on this stuff before it comes from concept to design to production to where we see it in the final stages. It's absolutely fascinating to watch that sort of unfold.
Yeah, and even it's so fun getting nerdy and specific, especially with a company like Blizzard, because then talking to Siggety about the culling specifically, which was the mission that they showed off at BlizzCon, which is the famous mission where Arthas goes in and kills all the townspeople.
That's right.
And they were talking,
alert.
Sorry, but they're saying that originally it was even like more extreme, that originally the townspeople wouldn't turn into the monsters and you auto attack them, but in the original version you actually had to like click attack on these human beings.
And you have to do that now in the current version.
Really?
While they're human, yeah. If you want to kill them while they're human.
Well, in Warcraft 3 as it's shipped, that's also the case.
Right.
Where you have to click to attack them when they're human, yeah. But I love the idea of them being human all the time and you have to like push the mechanics to murder these people. I think it's cooler But Siggety was on the camp of like, I'm glad we didn't do that.
They were ahead of No Russian before No Russian.
Honestly, yeah, it is the RTS No Russian. Yes. It is cool, man.
And it was fascinating to play that mission again and sort of see all the crazy stuff they brought in from World of Warcraft into there. Like landmarks and stuff, and bosses from Stratholme, the dungeon, which I'm sure Andy knows. Like they're in there now.
It was wild. Yeah, they completely changed the entire layout to map or to match WoW. Because I had just played that mission in Warcraft 3 before going on the trip, and then getting down and playing that mission while at Blizzard, just realizing, I don't know where anything is anymore. It's like not a slight shift. It has rearranged the map entirely, just with the same objectives overall. And they're a little bit. It seemed like they weren't clear exactly how many of the campaign missions were going to be completely rearranged.
They still weren't clear, but talking with them, it was like they were going to them like one by one and saying, let's change this one, let's change this one. So they're going to pick and choose, I think. But I think the goal was to retrofit quite a few of them.
They said Fall of Silvermoon is getting reworked significantly, but beyond that...
they bandied about all kinds of things that could happen, right? Like the game's final mission might even make it back in. There was a mission after the World Tree that was removed. Because everyone felt it was too anticlimactic after that big battle at the end, right? There was another mission, but...
You're just playing as a dragon. That's it.
Just put the dragon race back in.
Just put the dragon race back in, right? Like,
At least in the mod scene. We got to get that dragon race in there somehow,
Yeah, somebody could come up with it,
I'd love to know that. I mean, it's obviously a game very much in development, right?
Yeah.
Currently,
extremely so.
Very much so.
The big takeaway was that this thing is a lot earlier than you think it is. Even like talking to the writers... the story folks, it's like, we have a rough first draft done. That's about where we're at. And it was what?
So much of the stuff hasn't been ironed out completely yet. We were only able to play as orc and human at that point. Like, there's tons of stuff getting. It is being still very much in development. Yeah,
and they say 2019 for the release, but
correct.
They said, as far as how far they are, it was like, what did they say? They said that like the engine work alone. Just getting this engine up and running again was 6 months longer than they were expecting because just on a technical level, it's mind-boggling thinking about Warcraft 3's engine became the WoW engine. And so now at this point, they have to retrofit the WoW engine back into the Warcraft 3 engine so they can update the visuals and all that stuff. And the cool thing, because it's Blizzard, they have the guy who originally built the Warcraft 3 engine, of course, working on this to now like retrograde and like completely revise the entire thing, which is nuts.
It's really fascinating. Like, it's like, this is a really enjoyable story just to go back and see like everything from the past to now and then where it's going is Warcraft rules. There it is.
Other big changes that we saw. I mean, they added a couple things like we have female demon hunters now, female death knights, female zombies,
alternates for like not even just like not just gender swaps, but also like they're just making new variants of all the heroes so that like. There's a little variety from those taverns. When you pick a hero, it's not always going to be like, hey, it's Illidan again. No,
and something they're a little bit sensitive about. And it was always a subtle thing of like, we want to kind of modernize some of the character models for the future audience, like the 2020 audience. It's like, what are you talking about? It's just less cleavage on a lot of the characters in the game. Just a little more subtle character design overall. Other interesting thing was for like the inspiration for the new art. Overall, is they look to a very specific cinematic, which I didn't expect, which was the Mists of Pandaria opening cinematic.
That's right.
And I don't know, Andy, you're a huge WoW guy. I don't know if you noticed this shift, but they saw that as like the end of the kind of like exaggerated Warcraft look. And since then, World of Warcraft has pushed towards more realism. But they said that with that cinematic, they really loved the kind of Popeye jaw on the humans and the more kind of slightly cartoony, old school look.
You got to get the big shoulders, man.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, yeah. And so that's the look that they're going for. That cinematic to push back into Warcraft 3 now for the redesigns.
Well, I mean, I think Blizzard is one of those things, and this is an example I've used when talking about games for I don't even know how long now. But, I think games that you make, games that are going to try to like live forever, when you try to find a tone that works for you that you can stick to, it grows so much better and doesn't become dated as quickly as like trying for like true realism.
Yeah.
Right. I think Blizzard does a great job of finding an art style that it can grow and you won't notice that it grows. I mean, if you look at old, like even WoW stuff, you can tell how low res it is, but I mean, you can still put it on a new character and it works.
It still looks good. It somehow stands against 15 years. It's like, wow, that still actually looks pretty good.
And I think they think a lot about that. And I think you see things like League of Legends or other games like that they go with a style and rather than like trying to like master realism, like, what was it? What was Epic's game? Paragon?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're like, this is just not going to age well, right? When you looked at the graphics, you're like, I don't think this will age. It looks great, but it won't age like these other games can age. And I think Blizzard always thinks about ways that they can make games that age well. And even though those old Warcraft graphics do look really dated,
there's a charm to them, though, man.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, exactly. And I think that they've always had that kind of, even from the Lost Vikings, even from like Rock and Roll Racing, they've always had a vibe. I think that's been very Blizzard, and they think a lot. They think a lot about that, right? You know?
Yeah. And on that art front, of course, we talk about like, hey, what are you going to remaster next? Which seems like we're running out of runway here. It's got to be Diablo 2. No hints of that, but like, of course, it's going to be Diablo 2.
Who knows?
Of course. But you know, the idea of like, hey, why don't you throw in a little Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2 in here? Because I'm a Warcraft 2 man myself, Dan. I know it's
I don't know how. I don't know how over 3.
I know. I understand that. I like it. But they talked about like with StarCraft, it was trickier than you think because essentially you have to make 2 games. Was the way Rob, one of the tech guys over there, explained it. Because for the models, the new like sprites and stuff in StarCraft Remastered, they didn't just like redraw the sprites. What they did is they completely built the models in 3D. So they could use it in the future if they needed it to have like these high-res units and stuff from StarCraft, and then took the pictures that then became the new sprites in StarCraft Remastered. So it's not like just redrawing everything for Warcraft 1 and 2. They would have to remodel everything and then in 3D and then make the 2D version of that, which is a weird loop. I didn't expect for that, but I hope at some point, Dan, after, in theory, Diablo 2 gets out there, we can go back and get Warcraft 1 and 2. That'd be so fun.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see because I think StarCraft worked so hard to be, you're not going to notice any difference between this game and that game.
Yeah.
And this game, I think I'm super interested, and it appeals to me that they're taking chances with it. But I do think there's going to be a crowd that's going to be angry that Warcraft 3 isn't like pixel perfect redo of the original. And maybe, you know,
I think you can play it with the original version, if I'm not mistaken.
Like
I was going to say that was my
stuff.
like if you can do that and kind of like off and on, that they can have that option.
Right.
We'll keep that in bay and hopefully open the door for more things when they do Diablo 2, as we were guessing, right?
Yeah.
That they can do interesting things in that. I like the idea of them redoing them pixel perfect, but also like reinventing them as well.
Yeah, and it's fun too, talking to them about, you know, tweaking the script a little bit. They understand a lot of those taunts and jokes are very sacred, but they brought up like, there's Star 69 jokes in Warcraft 3. Like,
those are good jokes.
How many of those do we keep versus gut? Like, how much of the charm of Warcraft 3 is associated with that? But yeah, all that raw audio and the original audio, they say is going to be in there, even though they're planning on like redoing the casting with the WoW voice actors doing the parts now for all the Warcraft 3 characters and stuff. But talking about like, you know, being a little bit less 100% faithful with Warcraft 3, they had an interesting take on it where they said that for StarCraft, they went and consulted a lot of folks in Korea, obviously, and they're like, hey, don't F this up. Keep this one-to-one.
Don't change anything.
Yeah. And their story for this one is Warcraft 3 is apparently very popular in China, and so they consulted a lot of experts and pros over there in China, and they said like, well, we're really into the modding scene, so we kind of want you to push things. We want you to add more modding tools, more flexibility. And so they said that they got the message from the hardcore Warcraft 3 community to kind of go nuts.
They do. They are changing a significant amount of things, lots and lots of things. And of course, speaking of the map mod scene, that's always been a hotbed in Warcraft 3. I mean, I played that game for probably 10 years after I would have stopped playing it as its own game.
Just Dota?
Not just Dota, just any of the custom games like Castle Fight, Gem TD, what is it, Battle Boats. There were so many. There were like 1,000. There were like at least 50 good mod maps that I like can't wait to see back with people using new tools to make.
And obviously they're a little bit sensitive around Dota overall, but it's nice to see them still kind of celebrate the original Dota, and they see it very much as like, our community kicked ass. I can't believe Dota was so successful. And they even had some line about like, we hope with Reforged that the community can invent new genres like, all over again.
They're going to make Heroes of the Storm in Warcraft.
Just think of the possibilities. Yeah. Also, Reiner, ready for this hot scoop? We talked about it on the podcast. For the last couple years, I feel like it's been coming up again and again. Like, how many genres do you think Blizzard's tried to make? What have they tried to do? And we asked Sam Didier, who's been there since 1991, if they've ever tried to make a fighting game. He says, and I quote, "Oh yeah," he says, "we did some back in the day, but they're not really appropriate, and they never really saw the light of day."
What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know if that means they're too bloody or what that could possibly mean.
I would guess that it's just like they're an RPG company and they just weren't appropriate to their audience. That would be my guess.
Maybe.
There's those arcade units in Overwatch.
Yeah,
right.
That kind of tease a
People
fighting
are always
game.
talking about
I want that.
I know. Just make it real. Maybe that's the next mobile game.
So question
fighter
for you
and
two.
mobile?
No, that'd be a disaster.
Did you ask them why not go to 4? Can the company not count to 4 like Valve can't count to 3?
Exactly.
Oh,
not so much. I mean, we did talk about 4 a little bit. hypothetically, and it's like, yeah, we'd love to see it someday. Who knows? And
whenever we bring 4 up, they shifted the conversation to how awesome Warcraft 3 was and how we need to see. I mean, that's normal, right? Like,
Of course, but I do love the idea of like this classic games team, which is a whole separate division. It's a really cool division, like this new building, way too far away. It was a long walk to get over to it, over and over again with all the camera equipment. But it's fun, like going in there. Yeah. I had to go to Blizzard. I walked. But in this building, it's very much under construction. They have like a bunch of trophy cases that are still wrapped in cellophane and stuff. Like it's a cool new space for that classic games team. But in theory, I love this team just like dissecting the hell out of Blizzard's best games, arguably, right? And then at some point, they're going to run out of runway of old games. And like, what does that team do? My dream is that team, who are now RTS experts and have spent all these years remaking this stuff, would then make a Warcraft 4. That is my
I like it.
completely hypothetical dream scenario.
We'll check back in 10 years and see what's going on.
Yeah, cut out this clip of the podcast. Send it to me in the future, please. Yeah. Also, speaking of podcasts and stuff, we have an opportunity to, in theory, no promises, but we'd love to get some folks from Blizzard on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so I want to know from the community who they want to hear from, because we could make it like an answering lingering questions like we normally do, all about Reforged. If you have specific questions about the remake, if you want to just know about Blizzard overall, let us know who you'd like to talk to. Do you want to learn about the original Warcraft development? What area do you want us to cover? And we'll try and line that up. But no promises.
Jeff
but in
Kaplan.
theory. Well,
I just want to look at him on live camera, just back and forth.
he has become like a full a cult of personality going on there, right? Like people
He looks
worship
so
him.
comfortable in that arena, like thousands of people, and it was just like, this is home. He did a great job.
Yeah, for
Love
sure.
that guy.
Anything else you want to share from the trip, Dan?
It was, Diablo Immortal notwithstanding,
Yeah.
it's, as always, it's just an incredible celebration of Blizzard and Blizzard community. It's my favorite show out of all the shows.
Yeah.
Despite being just short and 2 days, but man, it's so awesome to see everybody united around awesome games. I mean, it really is. It sounds like a marketing line, but
Awesome
it's true.
things are awesome. Got it.
Yeah, everything the optics we got from afar was disaster, right? Like, but once that announcement was done, everybody just went about their way and had a great
Immortal
time,
was
right?
Yeah, if you weren't one of those people in the Diablo Q&A hall, yeah.
Well, I think the best thing that happened at BlizzCon happened at the WoW Q&A, which was that Metzen came up and asked, when is Thrall getting the Horde back? which was like people went crazy, and it was nuts that he was like in line to ask questions, at the Q&A, and I thought that was pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's super cool. GameInformer.com/Warcraft3.
That is.
Which is a URL I never thought I'd say out loud on this podcast, but that's very exciting.
It's happening.
So we're, deep dives on the game's lore, everything we learned about how they're remaking stuff, interviews with some of the old timers.
Old-timers, new-timers, all-timers. Like, everything's there.
That's right. All the Blizzard All-Stars will be there. GameInformer.com/Warcraft3. Very exciting. That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.